Yes, thanks. Do you feel like most Rabbanim where you live and most shuls would have they seen your material, and then if so, how do they react?
Yeah, the same question.
I've been kicked out of shuls in South Florida. I've been kicked out of 2 shuls. One was the shul of the Biala Rebbe. So the Biala Rebbe knows who I am, and basically, when he heard that I was going to a shul here, that he said I wasn't welcome. The other shul was a Sephardi shul that closed down anyways, and it was because it's funny. I had a shul in North Miami Beach for 2.5 years, and in that shul we had a section for people to prostrate. It was really a shul based on Mishneh Torah. I mean, there was so many shuls. It's in the Jewish neighborhood. There's probably 20 shuls in a 2-mile radius. That we had one shul that was authentic old Baladi. So this dummy came to my shul, and my friend explained him the whole thing of prostrating. So he goes to another shul and he starts prostrating in the shul. And they're like, "Who taught you how to do that?" And they're like, "Oh, well, this synagogue over there." So everyone started calling us Muslim. And then since then, they kicked me out of that shul because of that, because they said I was encouraging people. That's the ignorance in the Jewish world, to think that prostrating is something that Muslims invented. It's not because of my view on Kabbalah or on the Rambam, but it's virtually always, outside of that example of prostrating, because I proselytize. And that's what they hate the most. And rabbis have told me straight out, our community doesn't want any more converts. So people think that I make things up. I mean, this is the way they see it, that they see converts. I don't know if it's because of Kabbalah or what, that they believe that they come from the Sitra Achra or from the unclean Klipot, but they don't want them, right? Like when you walk into a shul that's in a black neighborhood and everyone in that shul is like pasty white, that type of insularity takes effort. If you walked into a mosque in a black or Spanish neighborhood, that mosque would resemble the people in that neighborhood. Why is it that shuls are white anywhere you go? I'm not saying everyone in the shul is like this, and people usually follow the rabbi, but there's always good people there who are willing to stand up for you and this and that to a certain extent. I mean, no one's going to put their reputation on the line completely. But I've had rabbis who are the opposite, who welcome me and they're like, "Wow, I believe in what you do." I've had Chabad rabbis tell me, "I believe in what you do. I'm still Lubavitch, but I think what you're doing is a good thing." But those aren't the ones on YouTube or on Facebook. I just want people to be open-minded. And this is why in Israel, I've never faced any... In Israel, everyone's a heretic, okay? Everyone believes weird things and nobody cares. People daven in each other's shuls and no one cares. There's some groups...
Yeah, that's what I want to go there.
So, for example, like Lubavitch in Israel is known for not allowing black kids in their school. Most people don't know this. You guys could look it up. Things that people don't talk about. And like many of the Ashkenazi schools won't allow Sephardim in their schools. Right? But outside of that, like the whole Hinuk system, I don't know if Bensi could attest to that.
Yeah, so I can attest. It depends on what system you want to send your kids to. In general, the Haredi system, for a Sephardi boy to become a student in one of the Haredi yeshivas, you basically have to push yourself in. My wife just commented, you have to be like the most frum kid. You have to be super. And the family has to be the most frum family, and then they'll let a Sephardi kid in. So that's as far as that's concerned. And then, right, Sephardi family can't do it. Right. So they're very, very strict on letting Sephardi kids in. And then when you get into the world of Hasidim, and you mentioned Chabad, it's also pretty much around the Hasidish spectrum. It's very hard for a child of color,
for Ethiopians specifically, right?
Specifically Ethiopians, but not limited. Also, we can also bring Sephardim as well. Sephardim also have their, even many of them having to change their last names. From a Sephardish name to a Ashkenazi name, because it's funny. The joke is what's the joke about a guy with the last name Mizrahi changed his last name to Ashkenazi, but Ashkenazi is actually the Sephardi name.
Right, I heard of that. It's probably like the general of defense. His last name is Ashkenazi, but he's really Sephardi or something like that.
Right. It's whatever. It's all the school systems here is all messed up, and that's a thing that it seems like the system itself realizes that. Like all the Rabbanim I've spoken to, and people that sent to schools here kind of recognize to some extent that the system is all backwards as far as standards and things
So
taught
most
as
Sephardi
well.
Jews in Israel like become Breslov or Chabad, right?
Yeah,
Chabad
there's
is full of
tons.
Sephardim.
There's tons and tons and tons of Sephardi Breslovers, tons.
In Svat, there's a lot. Yeah.
But that's because the reason is because there was someone named Binyamin Cheshen or Velvel Cheshen. Is what I think is Binyamin Velvel Cheshen, something like this. One of the Cheshen, one of the big Breslover families that was like the only one that was going around and being Makarev Sephardi people. And so because of that, you have like a huge influx. And then you also have the Shuva Banim Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, which I'm sure you're aware of. It's a crazy kind of cult thing. Yeah. So
Is that the ones who walk around in the burqas, you mean?
yeah. They have a chelik of them are like that, but the main thing is
Like in Beit Shemesh. I mean, they're in Beit Shemesh. Right?
oh no, there are some of them here, but the majority of them live in Yerushalayim, like Shmuel Navi, Mea Sharim area, and it's basically centered around this rabbi of theirs, this rav of theirs that's they believe is like they seem to believe he's pretty much divine. The whole controversy was about he got in trouble for doing some shady things with Kabbalah's call and women, and he fled the country. And I don't remember this. He fled the country and he went to South America and he went to South Africa.
This is Lev Tahor.
No, not Lev Tahor. No, this it's similar.
There's so many controversies.
Yeah, you're right. You could compare it to Lev Tahor. It's called. You have to look at his name is Eliezer Berland.
Oh, right. Someone like Ynet.
Right. He was flying around the world trying to run away from the government whenever he got caught, and eventually he got caught and was shipped back to Israel and given a slap on the wrist and returned to his community. But yeah, they have some pretty even for Breslov. The funny thing, even for Breslov, which in and of itself, Breslov has some pretty interesting ideas. This group has even more weird ideas than Breslov. So you could imagine what we're talking about. We're talking about there were some ideas of a tzaddik, it's mutter for him to do Averis because the tzaddik is one with Hashem, and well,
it's like Shabbat.
Yeah, it's very similar. People have compared them to that. It's very similar. The difference is that they kind of see themselves to some extent within the general Breslov community, although most of the more normal Breslovers would say like, oh, they're not Breslov, like how it goes. It's that kind of thing.
Right. When I was living in Denver, one of the guys who translated the book on the Petek, that was called like Letters of Heaven, like the main translator.
The letter from heaven.
Yeah, that's it. So that guy came to my house for Shabbos in Denver, the guy who translated the book, and he became a Messianic Jew. You believe this?
Are you joking?
I'm not lying. And then he told me that he was one of the Gabaim of I guess you guys call him Abba, Rabbi Israel Desser.
Saba, they call him Saba.
Saba, right. And he told me inside stuff, how this guy was like nuts and he would become violent. It was like horrible. But anyways, one of his main Gabaim became a Messianic Jew.
That's the best, the funniest thing I've heard in a while. That's hilarious. And it kind of makes sense in a way because the theology is so close.
But he didn't become he didn't unlearn everything he knew. I mean, he just became so mystical that he sort of absorbed that into his belief system. But he was still like a Talmud Chacham, but it was just kind of sometimes you could learn your way out of Torah or kosher Torah.
Sure, yeah.
Isn't there like a polygamous group also like in Beit Shemesh or Mea Sharim, no?
I don't know if it does exist. I'm saying I live in Beit Shemesh and I've never heard of such a group.
Yeah, but you're in RBS?
I'm in RBS, yeah, but I'm right by I'm right in the central to where all the Kanoim are and whatever. So I wouldn't know if such a group exists.